Welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast with your host, Funk Roberts.
We are live, and welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast. This is episode number 152, and I'm your host, Funk Roberts, former professional athlete turned master metabolic trainer, certified hormone and testosterone expert. I'm also a health and fitness guru specifically for you, the man over 40, 50, 60, 70, and beyond, and I am your host. And this podcast is designed for you. This is where we talk about ways to naturally increase your testosterone levels and balance your hormones. This is where we talk about the mindset strategies and the mental health issues that a lot of men are dealing with as we age. This is also where we talk about workouts and training, nutrition, recovery, both mental and physical. We talk about sleep. We talk about supplementation. We talk about health issues. And today on this episode, we are going to talk about fat loss versus fat burning. And I want to start off by sending a super shout out to Jordan Syatt, because he is the one that gave me this idea to dive it deeper into the difference between fat loss and fat burning. Because listen, let me tell you something. I have used the word fat burning in a way that, could have come across as me saying you're going to lose fat, because there's a difference. And you're going to learn about this. I'm not going to spoil it. You're going to learn about the difference between fat burning and fat loss, and why, if you understand the difference, this is going to change your life. Specifically, if you're struggling to lose fat, because once you understand it, then you can apply the action that it takes to lose fat. This is also a coaching call. So this is a replay from a coaching call that I had in my Over 40 Alpha Brotherhood. You can join that for $1, because every month we have these types of coaching calls. And then every Friday we have our hangout, which is also another coaching call. So you're getting 5 group coaching calls from the Funkster every month. Imagine that, 5. Plus I answer your questions. Anyways, over40alpha.com for $1 and 30 days. Join. If you want a program specifically designed for the physiological change that you're going through, specifically designed to help you, give you the actual workouts you should be doing, and they're follow along. So literally you just click play and I'm there training with you. You can do it in the comfort of your own home. You don't even need a gym. I've got body weight. I've got ones with dumbbells. You don't even need a gym. And there's 3 years of training. So you start day 1, phase 1, fat loss shred, and you go, and this is fat loss shred, because the reason why I called it fat loss shred, not fat burn shred, is because you're going to lose fat, or you're going to set up the environment that will give you the best fat loss results. But you need a program, you need workouts, you need nutrition, you need to know exactly what to eat, what not to eat, what's sabotaging your testosterone levels, how to naturally increase testosterone levels, the foods you should be staying away from 100%, the foods that are going to help invigorate you and fuel your body, your mind, your soul. You're going to need recovery strategies, because we don't want to get injured, right? We're in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Listen, my brothers, you can't train the same way you used to. You can't do the exact same things. You need the recovery piece, but that physical recovery and mental recovery is going to be the game changer. It's going to keep you injury free. It's going to keep you pain free. It's going to keep you growing into your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s in your health and fitness. I'm going to give you mindset strategies so you can stay consistent, because a lot of people struggle with consistency. I'm going to talk about sleep and how we're going to give you sleep strategies, supplementation. Speaking of supplementation and speaking of fat loss, I have 2 supplements. Now, these are more fat burning supplements, again, using the fat burning, which you'll learn. But one's called Alpha Fat Shred, which I take every morning to help start setting up a thermogenic environment in my body. And then I also have Alpha Shred, Sleep Shred, which allows me to get that deep sleep that's needed to lose fat, right? Because you want to set your body up in a way that keeps that fat loss environment, fat burning environment, I guess you want to call it. Maybe you'll learn about that. But the better sleep you get, the more fat you're going to lose. Got to get that sleep. But today we're going to talk about fat loss versus fat burning. And as I mentioned before, they're not the same. And until you understand that, you are always going to struggle with losing that last bit of belly fat, because that's generally what it is with men, whether we're skinny fat, obese, or just fat, or just, we're actually losing weight, we're building muscle, and we're getting fit, but we just can't get rid of that that fat around the belly, right? That's the most difficult one. And of course, there's a lot of things happening: hormonal shifts, metabolism slows down because of our lifestyle, muscle loss due to sarcopenia, testosterone levels are lower. Like, of course, but we need to understand the difference between fat loss and fat burning so we can set up an environment that allows us to lose fat. And until we do that, it's going to be very difficult. In fact, probably you're not going to be able to do it because you don't understand. But today, you're going to understand. You're going to learn today. You're going to learn today. And this is from my coaching call. So a lot of guys are already implementing this. In fact, guys were implementing this right after the coaching call and starting to, okay, now I'm understanding. Now I'm starting to build out what my fat loss environment's going to be so that I can have some sustainable fat loss in the future. But now I'm bringing this to the podcast because I think more and more men over 40 need to hear this. And again, I'm giving a shout out to Jordan Syatt because he's the one that literally brought this to my forefront because it came through my feed in my Instagram. And although it was a short video, it spoke volumes. And as a coach, as a fitness expert, as someone who runs the Brotherhood and tries to transform and help men, I needed to talk this through. I needed to ensure that I was putting my brothers and my guys and you listening to this in the right, so that I'm setting you up for a win. I'm putting you in a position so that you can win. And that's what this podcast episode is going to do if you follow the instructions. So with that, thank you so much for being here. And I cannot wait for you to dive into this coaching call replay made into a podcast: fat loss versus fat burning and understanding the difference. Enjoy the podcast. Great. Okay, everyone. So welcome to this coaching call. Today, we are going to talk about fat burning versus fat loss. If you've ever wondered why, you're doing your workouts, everything is great, you think you're putting your effort into, your nutrition, your workout, and it's just that belly fat. You just can't get rid of that belly fat. And it's not just belly fat, it's fat in general. Okay. We're not just talking belly fat, but again, when I'm talking about this right now and you get that understanding, you're going to get an understanding on a whole in regards to fat loss versus fat burning. But it can be frustrating. I've gone through that process, right? Where, you get to it. Like, for instance, the other day I talked about how I was taking BPC 157, which is a peptide I was taking for my back. Unfortunately, it worked. It was working very well to get rid of my sciatica, but I started to hold a lot of water. I started to gain a lot of weight. Like literally I was 205 pounds. I haven't been 200 pounds in, I don't know how many years, probably 15 years. So that was concerning for me. Although it did work, I stopped. And now it's that, struggle to get that belly fat, that body fat back down. But there's a misconception between burning fat during exercise, that if you burn fat during exercise, you're automatically going to lose fat. But here's the thing. This is fat burning. Oh, come on. Let's get this working. Oh, okay. Hold on. That's fat burning. Big difference between losing 5 pounds or even 1 pound of fat. There is a difference. So we're going to talk about that because burning fat and losing fat are not the same thing. Okay. So we're going to understand that difference. So why is this important for us as we get older? Well, of course, we go through a lot of physiological changes, right? Particularly for us, man, it's the belly fat. That's the last thing to lose. Everyone's a little bit different, but when it comes down to everything, it's just this belly fat that's really difficult to lose. And our hormonal shifts come into play. Our metabolism, the changes in our metabolism comes into play. Muscle loss, right? Sarcopenia, natural loss of muscle due to aging. Testosterone and hormonal, well, I said hormonal shifts, but your T levels getting lower, other hormones taking over. So you might be getting all the Metatest Boost workouts in. You might be crushing your workouts, right? Inside the phases, focusing on fat burning workouts, because I call them fat burning workouts, right? These are workouts that'll help you burn fat, but the scale's still not moving. And maybe even the scale moves, but the fat's not moving. The waistline's not moving. The fat's not moving. So what is fat burning? So fat burning is the scientific term for fat burning is called substrate utilization. And this refers to the process in which our body uses fat as a fuel source during physical activity, right? So when we exercise, our metabolic workouts, your body requires energy, which is derived from two different substrates. It's derived from carbs, right? So you hear me talk about, a glycogen, carbs, and fats. So the term fat burning often refers to the oxidation of fatty acids to produce energy, which happens in our mitochondria. So during our lower intensity workouts, like let's say we do a mobility, or let's say we go for walks, right? Walking or something just very low intensity, our body tends to rely more on fats as a primary energy source. So I'm gonna give you like little asterisks, ahas right now. This is one of them. Okay, lower intensity activities will use fat more as a primary energy source. And this is because the fat oxidation is a slower process. So that matches the energy demand, right? If I'm just going for a walk, the energy demand for a walk or for mobility or even just a light jog is not high. It's a lower energy demand, which means the body will start to tap into fat to use as energy. Okay. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be fat loss. It's just using fat as the source of energy. In contrast, when we do our metabolic workouts, the Metatest Boost workouts in our phases, we're going through those workouts, our body shifts to using carbs, right? As stored glycogen, because the carbs that we're talking about are the stored glycogens that are in our muscle and our liver. Right? And that's because these can be metabolized more quickly to meet the higher energy demand. So our metabolic workouts, high intensity, moving from one exercise to another, that needs those carbs. That's why we eat those carbs, right? We need that glycogen. So that's kind of like the two energy sources that your body's going to use. Now, there's this myth of this fat burning zone. So again, I've had people ask me this question inside the Brotherhood. I've had people ask me this question all the time. What if I'm on the Peloton, or I'm on the treadmill, or I'm doing the bike, or I'm hearing this thing about the fat burning zone? Right. Well, this is they believe that people will think that, and again, it's no one's fault. It's just what has been pushed, that if we stay in the fat burning zone, right? Here I am in the fat burning zone. I'm doing low intensity exercise. This is the best way to lose fat. However, it's true that a higher percent of calories that are going to be burned during the low intensity exercise is going to come from fat. That doesn't automatically mean that you're going to reduce body fat, right? You're still going to be, because you have to be in a caloric deficit. So if I'm every day doing this low intensity fat burning zone every single day, I'm doing this great fat burning. This guy came out with this program called the Fat Burning Zone workout that's going to help me lose 5 pounds of belly fat and fat in general, but I'm still not doing it. Well, that's because total energy expenditure, that's the key. Because if I'm eating more than I'm burning in this fat burning zone, then how can I lose fat? It doesn't matter if I'm in a fat burning zone or not. If I'm still eating more calories because I'm doing a longer, low intensity workout, which sometimes will trick our body into wanting more calories afterwards. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. That's where this myth comes in. Okay. So it's not just being in the fat burning zone, which if you have been following that, or if that's something that we hear that a lot. Okay. The fat burning zone, the fat burning zone, the fat burning zone, and relating it to fat loss. Because I'm not saying there's no fat burning zone where the body's using fat as energy, but that's not going to necessarily give you fat loss. Okay. Because fat burning isn't enough. Just because you're burning fat doesn't mean you're going to lose fat. I mean, here's a perfect example. I know in my area here, there's a lot of runners. And it's just right now it's even more because they've closed off the path. They're working on this path that's in front of my house. So all the runners are now running on our street all the time because they have to come around. So I'm seeing all these runners and people who probably run all the time. Also, when I lived in the beach, there was a running class or some running group that used to run all the time. But the one thing that I always saw with this group was, of course, there's the marathon run, like the high. I'm not talking about the high level marathon runners. Although outside of marathon running, a lot of these people are slim, but they still hold belly fat, specifically if they're older. But I'm just talking about the regular people who join these groups. They still have a lot of fat on their body, even though they're running, because fat burning is just using fat as fuel during this light run, right? So for fat loss, we need to, we need to reduce all the fat stores, because my assumption is these people are going on runs, but the type of calories they're putting in, the type of foods they're eating, maybe they're drinking a lot, is not going to necessarily transfer over to fat loss. So again, the fuel, fat burning means it's the fuel. The body's using fat as fuel. Okay. That's where that happens, because it now comes down to the calorie deficit. Okay. That's key. All right. So now that we understand what fat burning actually is, let's talk about fat loss. Because fat loss is a process by which our body reduces its fat stores. And this happens when you're consistently in a caloric deficit. Okay, and it's essential to grasp how this energy balance works, because your body requires a certain amount of calories each day to maintain its current weight. That's called the total daily energy expenditure. In fact, these calculators are not set in stone, but you could get an idea by going to a TDEE. I don't have the actual, let me just see if I have the link up here. Oh, I do. Wow. I'm going to paste this link right now into the Zoom. You can also just go and do TDEE. Okay, there it is. I just put it into the Zoom right there. So you can also just Google it and get to a page that has a TDEE calculator. Very simple. And when you consume fewer calories than your TDE, your total daily expenditure, your body needs, your body's going to start to need to find alternative sources of energy to make up this deficit. And this is where fat loss comes in. This is where you get the fat loss. When your caloric deficit, your daily caloric deficit is less, right? Because when you're in a caloric deficit, your body begins to break down all the stored fat into fatty acids and glycerol, which is then used as energy. And this process reduces body fat stores over time, right? It's over time. It doesn't happen like in a day or two. This needs to happen over time. You need to be in a calorie deficit over time in order to lose fat. Now, the caloric deficit is very crucial, because have been lots of studies that confirm that a caloric deficit is the primary driver for fat loss. But you got to remember something here. When we're in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, specifically us guys, we have to create this caloric deficit, not just diet. That's where the massive mistake is made. The mistake is made as soon as someone hears caloric deficit, they just think diet. Well, we're going to learn about why diet is going to sabotage if that's how you think. It's got to be a combination of nutrition. It's got to be a combination of strategic workouts that allow you not just burn calories during, but burning calories after. And there's also other lifestyle things we need to be doing in order to ensure that our body over the day is burning more calories than we consume. Because that's really what it is. We want to burn more calories every day than we consume. This is why you can burn fat during exercise, but not lose fat, right? And again, as we get older, there's a lot of different things that happen to our body. So if we put the substrate utilization, which is fat burning, versus the caloric deficit that we need to get fat loss, right? This is kind of like the conclusion we're going to come to. listen, fat burning is extremely important. Okay. Substrate utilization is extremely important during exercise, during our overall day, but it's the overall caloric deficit that will dictate your fat loss. And research shows that both high intensity and low intensity exercise can definitely lead to fat loss, right? Or fat loss if they're contributed to the whole caloric deficit. But if you're just doing metabolic workouts, but your nutrition is not on point, or you're not eating the right foods, or you're eating foods that, are high in calories, if you're not doing all of the other things throughout the day that are going to help you burn calories, if you don't have muscle, you're going to be putting yourself into a very difficult place because, as you're going to learn, muscle is very metabolic. Okay, so that's kind of the difference between fat burning and fat loss. Yes, we need fat burning. Yes, our workouts will help us burn fat. Yes, the type of workouts that you do will help you burn fat. Yes, the low intensity walks and low intensity stuff will help burn fat, which means your body utilizing the fat as energy. But the fat loss comes from the deficit. Okay, so let's dive in. Fat burning, it's all about the type of fuel the body uses. Fat loss is about reducing your body fat stores by maintaining a calorie deficit. Okay, that's pretty much it. So let's talk about a calorie, because we want to understand what is a calorie and why this is so important. Because when we understand what a calorie is and how it impacts the body, it's going to help us understand a little bit more about, okay, this is how we can keep that fat down. Because remember, we need to decrease our fat, our body fat, right? That is making us extremely unhealthy, right? It is speeding up our death bed, 100%. At this age, it's literally, you're on the highway to death. That's all I can say right now. I don't sugarcoat shit here, right? You guys know this. It's death. And that's not what we're here for. Right? So we need to understand what a calorie is and why it's really important, because we need to get rid of that extra fat, right, that we have in our bodies. So a calorie is a unit of energy. Okay. And specifically, it's the amount of energy that is required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. So this is a scientific version. So in the context of nutrition and metabolism, calories measure the energy that food provides to the body, right? So that food provides the fuel for our body's various functions. From the basic functions, just like breathing, blood circulating, to more complex things like exercise and even thinking. Like right now, I'm burning calories because I'm having to really focus and think about what I'm saying. I'm reading certain things. So I'm burning calories right now as I'm going through this. And then you also want to think of calories as energy currency, right? Think of calories as that energy currency of energy in your body. Just like we use money to pay for like goods and services, calories are spent by your body to perform specific functions. Every movement, every thought, every process in our body requires energy. And that energy comes from calories. And that energy mostly comes from the calories in food and beverage that we consume, right? That's where a lot of those calories come in place. But not every calorie is created equal, right? Not every calorie is created equal. We want to make sure that we're getting nutrient-dense calories, but we'll get to that in a second. So let's talk about how our body uses these calories. Okay, because this is going to be important. It's because remember, I did talk about calories coming in from food and beverages. And if you do go to that TDEE calculator and put all of your information in there, you're going to see how many calories you need during the day for your body just to function, just to stay where it is right now. Okay, so how does your body use calories? Well, the first is the basal metabolic rate. This is like the biggest percentage. Just the largest portion of your daily caloric expenditure comes from your basal metabolic rate, which is the energy your body needs to maintain basic physiological functions like rest, like when it's resting, like, just breathing, circulating the blood circulation, regulating your body temperature. And as I mentioned before, your BMR is going to be the biggest percentage of your total daily energy expenditure, about 60 to 75%, depending on what you use as your total daily energy expenditure. Physical activity. That's the next significant contributor to your caloric expenditure is physical activity, which means basically the structured workouts that we do, right? Phase one, day one, your workouts, four days a week. We do, 3 days are main workouts. 1 day is a bonus workout. All of these workouts are specifically designed for you to burn calories during and after, which is why I created these metabolic workouts. They're like the best type of workouts to do to allow your body not only to burn calories during, because if you look at here's the other thing too, if you're one of those people who base the workout itself on the calories you burn during the workout, you are going to find that you're not burning a ton of calories during the workout. But because they're metabolic workouts, I'm going a little bit further into what I'm about to talk about, but you're not just burning calories during, but you're burning calories hours and hours after, which is why you have to look at your total day's calorie burn, not just, oh, guys, look at how many calories I burnt this workout. Because even those things aren't 100%. Okay, even those things aren't 100%. So if you are focused just on the calories during the workout, you're missing the entire picture. You're only looking at a very small portion of the calories, the daily calories that you need that your body needs. So yes, it's a significant contributor, but it's not just the workouts, because it's also walking, fidgeting. If you're someone who fidgets, like sometimes I get that knee that fidgets all the time. Sometimes if I'm a very I have a very hard time staying still. I can if I'm focused and if I want to just stay still, but my relaxed state is just moving around. That's just my relaxed. I probably always have music going in my head. That's probably why. But the energy expended through physical activity, walking, fidgeting, just performing daily tasks, walking, parking further away from the grocery store so you can walk as opposed to parking right up at the front. Like those little things all account for the physical activity that you do on a daily basis, which is why you hear a lot more people talking about going for walks, 10,000 steps, going for a walk, 10,000 steps. Is 10,000 steps the magic number? Probably not the magic number. You could probably do it in 5,000 steps, 3,000 steps, 20,000 steps. It all depends on your lifestyle. But I think they use that 10,000 steps because there has to be a key performance indicator. A KPI for those of you in business. There has to be something we need to actually, okay, what is that performance indicator that I need on a daily basis? So at least I can focus on a number. 10,000 is a great number. It really is. It really forces you to think about, am I actually getting 10,000 steps? Because some people think they are. Oh yeah, I work here, I walk back and forth. They assume they get it, but they don't know. We have to drive our lives through data, right? Like we have to know. We can't guess. Well, I work in a place where I walk around, so I probably do get steps. Unless you actually know, it's very difficult to make that statement. Just track it one day so you know, right? You'll be surprised sometimes. Specifically, if you're having problems losing that fat, but I walk all the time. Well, okay, let's see how many steps you get. Like walking your dog, that doesn't count. I mean, it counts as, yes, you're going for a walk, but using walking the dog as the walk that you go on, your dog is stopping and starting and walking slow sometimes. And it's very erratic as opposed to going for a 30-minute dog walk versus a 30-minute walk. Two different things. I see it all the time. You see people, you got to pick up the poo, you got to walk, or your dog stops here, your dog's here, you're pulling your dog back from going across the street. Like, it's not the same as going for a walk specific for physical activity throughout the day. So also think about that. Not saying the dog walk isn't going to be part of it, but we need some strategies, some specifics that we do on a daily basis. And then there's the thermic effect of food. Very important. You've heard me maybe talk about this. Now, thermic effect of food is the process of digestion, absorption, and the metabolism of the food. That requires energy. This is important right now. So this is another aha. This is called the thermic effect of food. Okay. This typically accounts for about 10% of the daily calorie expenditure. Remember, we want to make sure that we are in all of these. Now, protein has the highest thermic effect of food versus fats and carbohydrates. Let me repeat that. Protein. It takes the body more energy to process and metabolize protein than it does fats and carbs, which means we're burning calories just eating protein. And most guys aren't getting enough protein because we've gone through this journey earlier on in the year when we talked about trying to get 150 grams of protein, and a lot of people were having problems just getting 150, let alone 200 and beyond. Right? But knowing that, oh, wait a minute, but if I eat protein, not only is protein great for the muscles, for the metabolic processes, we need protein for bones and strength and the recovery of our muscles so they grow and get stronger. It's also thermic. It also has a thermic effect. It means that we're going to burn calories. Now, we don't want too much protein, but most of us aren't getting enough protein. So that's really important. And then there's the last thing, the last part of your daily, how our body uses calories. So we've got the basal metabolic rate, like just what we're doing as we're breathing, as blood circulating through the body, as our temperatures are being regulated. That's number one. Number two is the physical activity. So the workouts, the mobility, the walks that you guys are going to start going on starting today after your meals, because that's what we're going to do. The thermic effect of food, making sure we're getting high quality, dense nutrition and focusing on protein. And number five is the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So it's called NEAT. And that's the physical activity that we do that's not structured. So for instance, household chores, walking to your car, like I said before, parking further away from the grocery store and then walking to the store, typing on your computer. These are just like, the neat stuff, like the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, that will differ from person to person depending on your day, like depending on the type of person you are, right? Like every time I wake up in the morning, I go downstairs and I clean the downstairs, their living room, and that whole part's because my mindset is I want to set up Angela for the win, whether it's she gets up and sees a beautiful cleaned house every morning. There's no stress. It smells good. It's vacuumed. Everything is nice and clean. Or when she gets home from work, the last thing you want to do is come home from work, open the door, and your house is a complete disaster. If you come home from a hard day's work and your house smells good, looks good, it's clean, okay, that just sets an environment. That's something I've been doing for probably the last 6 years. But that would be a non-exercise activity thermogenesis for me, right? That's just something that I do, but I'm burning calories because I start my day off. So again, the role of calories in fat loss is energy balance. So energy balance is central for understanding fat loss. Energy balance refers to the relationship that energy or calories that you consume and the energies you expend. So that's the energy balance. What am I consuming? What am I expending? Right? When you consume the same amount of calories you expend, your body remains stable, which is why I said when you go to the TDEE calculator, you're going to see how many calories do I need so that my body, right, is at a balanced state. This is the energy balance, the maintenance, right? And when there's an imbalance in this energy balance, when there's an imbalance, that's when your body weight changes, right? Again, I'm talking about fat loss, not weight. Totally different. What else is the calories and energy? Well, there's a caloric surplus, right? So the caloric surplus, again, it's when you consume more calories than your body needs for its daily functions. So if my body says I need 3,000 calories, because that's what my body said it needed, 3,000 calories, and I'm eating 5,000 calories, right? Then we're not going to lose fat. Okay, that's not going to happen. That's a calorie surplus. And over time, the calorie surplus leads to weight gain. And as your body continues to store excess energy in its fat cells, the more weight you're going to gain, the more fat you're going to gain. And of course, this fat is not just subcutaneous fat, it's also the fat around the liver, right? The one that kills you. And then there's a calorie deficit, which is when you consume fewer calories than your body needs. But because your body's going to need to find alternative energy sources. And usually this is where your body taps into the energy reserves, which is stored as fat. Okay. So you probably hear me have said this a couple of times, that what happens after, so I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but stay with me. There's been times where people will say to me, oh, well, Funk, after my workout, all I had was a protein shake because I worked out really, really late. And so I didn't want to eat. So I didn't eat anything. I just had a protein shake, right? But I'm still finding it very hard to lose fat. What's happening? Why? Why do you tell us to eat after? Well, you've heard me say that so this is why it's very important that the calorie deficit is not just about food. Because if you're not eating enough food, right? For instance, I just worked out. My body used the glycogen stores, right? That was using all that glycogen stores, the carbs in my muscles and my liver, and I just got this workout out, and now I've depleted myself of the glycogen. So now I'm very tired, even though it's a little bit late. And if I only have protein, your body's gonna think, okay, well, I'm waiting for Funk to give me that glycogen back through carbs. I'm waiting for him, because if he does that, then I will get those carbs in. Our body can continue to metabolize, right? The body's going to metabolize the carbs. The protein that he eats is going to go to the muscles and the metabolic processes. The fat that I have now stored, right, I can use that. I can burn it because I don't need to store it anymore. And then, of course, I'm going to get the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals through the fruits or vegetables. If we do not have a meal after our workout and we decide to say, I'm going to skip the meal, I'm good, then your body goes, okay, I'm going to slow everything down. I'm going to go into survival mode. I'm going to slow down your metabolism. I'm going to hold on to that fat because you're not giving me what I need. So I'm going to have to hold it. And I'm going to have to use the energy, the protein in your muscles in order for me to get energy. I'm going to have to dip into those muscles. And guess what happens when you dip into those muscles? You lose muscle. So your body is now thinking, oh, well, this guy's, I got to survive. There must be something. I'm not getting the food. Your body doesn't know that it's not getting food. Just knows that you're not giving it what it needs to survive. So that's that fat storage. So your body is storing fat, whether it's to use as energy, whether it's to lose as fat, or whether it's just to store. So it's very, very important. I just wanted to just add that in there, because a lot of times people automatically will jump to nutrition. This is eat less. Why don't we just eat less, Funk? That's going to work. That's not going to work. Because you all probably have gone down that road. You've done restrictive diets. You've done this diet, keto diet, paleo diet, low carb, low fat, all of these crazy diets, and even fasting for a long period of time, which I've gone through my story about why you do not want to fast for a long period of time, because you're not getting enough calories, which means your body's going to eat into the muscle, which means your body's going to slow down. Yeah, maybe the first month, maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months, you're gonna get some results. But is that really the results you're looking for? Is it weight? Is it fat? But we're going on another tangent. Let's talk about why the calorie deficit, though, is crucial for fat loss. Because we're not just going to get calorie deficit from nutrition. The reason why calorie deficit is crucial for fat loss is called the law of thermodynamics. And the law of thermodynamics is a principle that just says fat loss is based on the first law of thermodynamics, which states that the energy cannot be created or destroyed. So our energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred from one form to another. So we can't create it. We can't destroy it. It gets transferred. So this means that for your body to lose fat, it must extend more energy than it consumes, forcing it to convert the stored fat. Remember I talked about there's stored fat in there, into usable energy when there's nothing left, right? But again, as I mentioned before, it is a little bit more complex than just, if I don't eat anything, then my body's going to burn the fat. Because remember, there's a lot of other things that our body needs the calories for. And different types of calories, macronutrients, etc., will help with allowing us, right, to have a balanced our body to work where it needs to work. So there's been numerous studies that consistently show that calorie deficit is the primary driver. So again, I've been hammering this, but again, the calorie deficit is very key. Exercise and calorie deficits. Again, exercise plays a central overall role to create the calorie deficit, but it's not enough. Okay, fat loss, it's not enough. You need to focus on nutrition and some other things that we're going to talk about, as well as the type of workouts that you do. Again, as we're getting older, we have to remember the physiological changes are different, because this, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about fat burning versus fat loss, is for everybody. Men, women, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, this is the fat loss key. Calorie deficit. So that doesn't change for whether you're an athlete, for whoever you are, that doesn't change. But how it does change is with the physiological changes that are happening to our bodies, things that are going on. That's why we have to pay a little bit more close attention on the environment and the lifestyle that we set up in order for us to maximize our calorie deficit. So let's talk about some of the importance of a sustainable calorie deficit. Because remember, we want something that's sustainable. This is another aha moment, everybody. Sustainability, meaning we should be able to do this for the rest of our lives. Because we need to avoid extreme deficits. Because while creating a calorie deficit is essential for fat loss, it's important to avoid extreme deficits, because that is going to lead to three major things that we never want to face as we get older. Number one, muscle loss. When you go on extreme calorie deficits, you lose muscle. Number two, and I'm going to go back to muscle. And it doesn't matter if you're lifting. Funk, I do strength training all the time. Funk, I do your muscle building workouts. Funk, I'm doing all the workouts. I'm increasing my weight. How come I'm feel like I'm losing muscle? And yes, I am doing this low carb diet, or I am doing this, I don't know, Atkins diet, some low calorie diet, but I'm still doing the workouts. Shouldn't I build muscle? The answer to that question is no. When you go on extreme calorie deficits, you will lose muscle. You will also have, number two is nutrient deficiencies, right? Because what do nutrient deficiencies lead to? Chronic illnesses. That's a highway to your deathbed, right? When you don't get the nutrients you need, the chronic illnesses start to increase, right? And number three, the metabolic slowdown. Remember, I talked about body feeling like it's in a survival mode. Well, of course, if you just did your TDEE like I did, and it was 3,000, and all of a sudden I decide, you know what, I'm going to go on a 2,000 calorie a day diet for the next 2 weeks because I want to lose fat. Well, what's going to happen? Well, I'm not only going to lose muscle, which means my metabolism is going to slow down. I'm not only not going to have enough nutrients getting into my body, so my body's going to go into survival mode, because, hey, Funk's not giving us what our whole body needs to function on a daily basis, just to function. Remember the basal BMR? That's just, I'm not getting what I need from even the BMR, let alone everything else, because he's still doing workouts. And then our metabolism is going to slow down. So this is all what happens when we go on these extreme deficits, thinking that I'm going to really nip this in the bud. But if you just look at, like, for instance, when I work with the UFC, I've worked with fighters, all fighters, Muay Thai, wrestlers, BJJ, MMA, and creating nutrition and weight cut plans for them. Plus, with Angela and I working at the UFC for the last 10 years, we work generally during the week of their weight cut. So we've seen it. I've helped fighters cut weight. I see it. I've cut weight myself. It is absolutely brutal. And remember, we're just trying to cut weight. We're getting all the water out. But when you're doing that, you're also depleting now it's a shorter term. It's only a week, but your metabolism slows down. Like you can't do anything. You can barely walk. You know, if you've seen some of these guys who are just trying to starve themselves just to get on the scale to make weight, it's crazy. But what happens when they make the weight and they start to rehydrate? They start to put the nutrients back in. They blow up. And not only do they blow up, but because they're feeding their muscles, they become super, super jacked if they're already muscular, right? Because one of my jobs one of my older jobs with the UFC, was taking everybody's weight on fight night. So I knew the weight. Obviously, we know the weights that they're stepping on the scale. We know what weight they are because they're fighting at a specific weight. But in my phone, I have hundreds and hundreds. I have all of the weights for, I think, 3 years of all the fighters that stepped on that in the octagon on fight night. I know the weight discrepancy. I know how much weight they put back on. So thinking about how quickly the weight comes back. So what I'm saying is when they're putting back that weight, they're doing it in a scientific way, right? They have a nutritionist who's going to help them rehydrate in a certain way. But we don't have that. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how many of you guys, even if you were wrestlers or fighters or whatever in the past, or did something where you have to cut weight, know exactly how to properly rehydrate yourself after these extreme diets. Most people don't know that. So you're just going to eat and you're just going to put that back on, and probably worse, because as we get older, all the physiological changes. So avoiding extreme diets are key. And then also, here's the other aha moment, focusing on quality and quantity, but mostly quality. The quality of food, right? Because fat loss isn't just about reducing the calories, but it's also about ensuring you're consuming high quality, nutrient dense foods. Remember I talked about a calorie is not a calorie? Yes, you're going to find a ton of fitness people who are going to tell you a calorie is just a calorie. But guess what? Ton of fitness people, a calorie isn't just a calorie. Calories are different. They are, for us, the type of calories, prioritizing whole foods, lean proteins, healthy fats, complex carbs. All of this helps us not only stay satiated and nourish our body, but it makes it easier to maintain a sustainable caloric deficit. The word sustainable, meaning lifelong. We're doing this for the rest of our lives. Because the more restrictive diets you go on, the worse your health is gonna get. Like these fighters, you see a lot of fighters. I'm always using fighters just because that's what I can relate to, like right now. Like the lifespan of a MMA fighter, I'm gonna go MMA, is very small, like 4 or 5 years. You don't it's very, and remember they only fight maybe 2 to 3 times a year. They're not fighting all the time. It's not like another sport like football or baseball or hockey where you have a season. So the more they do these weight cuts, the worse it is on their body. It's harder to cut weight as they get older. It's more difficult. It puts their body on more stress. And there's a host of other things. Obviously, their testosterone levels are all low. They're not getting the nutrients to the brain, aside from all the other high, the training that they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not healthy. We need quality. We definitely want to look at the quantity for sure, but it's the quality, and it's avoiding these extreme diets. Okay, because calories are our currency, right? Remember, calories is the currency our body uses for energy. So we can't play around with this currency. We can't play around with this currency and think like we're not 20 and 30. Where we can go on all these different restrictive diets and try this one and try that one and bounce from this. The more you do this at our age, bounce from diet to diet and try this one and that one. I'm going to go vegan. I'm going to go low carb. I'm going to go keto. I'm going to do this. Oh, I heard this one diet. It's called the 1 OMAD, 1 meal a day. Joe Rogan does it. Let me try that. Oh, Funk, I heard about this new diet. It's called the Flex Max whatever diet. This person's doing it. There's a 72-hour fast that Dana White did. Oh yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Like all this bullshit out there, we can't do that. The more we play with those things, the faster we're putting ourselves on our deathbed. The faster, like the highway, we're pushing the pedal to the metal. It's all about sustainability. It's all about a lifestyle. It's all about creating something that we can ensure that our body consumes fewer calories or is in a caloric deficit, but we also want to ensure that we're getting the calories that we need. Okay. So let's go into the efficient ways to burn calories throughout the day. So we know that there's a difference between burning fat, which is energy. We need fat for energy, and losing this fat. We know there's a difference now. Okay, Funk, you told us that. What are the ways we can do this throughout the day? What are the ways we can do this in our lifestyle so it's sustainable? Number one, the metabolic style workouts, right? I always talk about those old school bodybuilding workouts. Now, again, there's a time and place. If you are already in a healthy, but you already have your nutrition on point, your daily, sleep's good, because that's the only way you're gonna build muscle. You're healthy. You've lost the fat you want to lose, and now you want to do some strength training, which sometimes is a little bit longer. Totally different. That's totally different, right? And because you understand what your body's doing, you understand the type of workouts you're doing, so maybe you'll go a little bit longer. But in general, for most of us, it's about the sustainability of metabolic workouts, right? The workouts that we do in this program. The reason why I put these workouts in the program is because they are workouts that allow you to burn calories during and after, 24 to 36 hours after. It's called EPOC, excess post exercise oxygen consumption, also known as the afterburn effect. It's the rate of oxygen intake following extraneous activity, which means at the beginning of a workout, like right now, if all of us were sitting here right now, we're all at homeostasis. Our body's at homeostasis. And now let's say we all go, okay, Funk, we're all going to do this workout. All 42 of us are going to do a workout. And so then we start with the warm up, and then we get into this 20-minute, 25-minute workout, move from one exercise to another, 4 or 5 exercises each. We do the ab finisher, which is 5 minutes, and then we rest, like we stretch. Well, because we went into such a high intensity workout, because the workout was, even though it was 20 minutes, it was pretty high intensity, right? Went from one exercise to another with little to no rest in between. It's going to take our body 24 to 36 hours to go back to homeostasis, because our body, because the increased rate of oxygen intake for 20 minutes was so high that it's going to take our body much longer to get back to homeostasis than it would if we were just to get on the Peloton here, or, whatever it is, and just do a very long, low to moderate workout for 60 minutes. Because we can't do a high intensity workout for 60 minutes, but you can do a very long Peloton ride that's moderate. You can do a hour and a half traditional bro split workout where you're doing 12 reps and then resting for 5 minutes, and then doing 12 reps and resting for 5 minutes, because that's generally what happens. Then it takes the body maybe 60 minutes to get back to homeostasis, because your oxygen intake wasn't that great. It wasn't that high. So the type of workouts that we do puts our body into a very good metabolic rate. It allows us to burn calories not only during and after, which is why I always say, do not put stock on the calories that you burn during your workout, because I'm telling you, you're burning way more calories throughout the day just from that workout alone. That's number one. Number two, building muscle mass, right? Again, we suffer from sarcopenia, natural loss of muscle due to aging, but muscle tissue is more metabolically active than fat. It means we're going to burn more calories at rest. The more muscular you are, the more metabolic you are, right? So that's why we add dumbbells, resistance bands, dumbbells, weight vests, kettlebells to these workouts. Yes, body weight for sure. Body weight's great. You need to use body weight exercises and workouts to master movements. But if you just use body weight workouts for the rest of your life, it's going to be very difficult to build muscle. You need that added resistance, that added load. Sure, you can change a few things up, but after a while, our bodies are very smart. 2-3 years into just body weight training is going to be very difficult as we get older. I'm not talking about young guys, I'm talking about us. So that's why we add weight. That's why we progressively overload with the type of exercises, the type of workouts, but the weight. Right? We're not still using 20 pounds for bicep curls in phase 1. and still using those same 20 pounds for bicep curls in phase 12, because you're not building muscle. It's not happening. Doesn't matter how faster you go. It's not happening. We need to build muscle. And then, of course, the daily activities, right? The daily activities and the NEAT. We're going to put those two together. NEAT meaning non-exercise activity thermogenesis, right? So walking and movement. Simple exercises like walking, taking the stairs, even standing, right, instead of sitting. Like for those, some of you stood up instead of sitting. Very important, specifically for people who sit all day. Even just standing every 10 minutes, every 25 minutes, stand up, walk around, right? This type of calorie burn, which is known as NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, can significantly contribute to the overall calorie deficit, right? Because these are calories that are burned outside of that exercise, household chores, gardening, playing with your kids, all of those things, right? Walking after your meal, fidgeting and micro movements is another thing, right? If you are a fidgeter, not saying to start fidgeting, but if you are a fidgeter, a lot of times that's just adding to the micro movements, which of course will burn calories. It's not going to burn a ton of calories, right? Because again, there may be people who are still got a lot of belly fat or still a lot of body fat or out of shape, but are fidgeters. Well, that's a very small percentage of your daily caloric intake. But remember, we're trying to add everything to our foundation to build a caloric deficit environment. So every little bit counts. And as we get older, we need to continue to move because we lose that too. And finally, or the fourth is the thermic effect of food, the protein rich diets, ensuring we're getting enough protein because again, thermic effect of food, specifically protein, because it has the highest, is the process of it digesting, absorbing, and metabolizing the food. That burns calories. That's why, and protein, of course, not just for our muscle maintenance, building muscle, and not just for the metabolic processes that go on, but ensuring that we have protein in every single meal that we eat, all 3 meals a day, because that's all we need to eat, right? The old school thing of, oh, let's graze and eat 6 meals a day. That, again, gets too much, right? Because now that's putting our body into a stressful zone, into a survival mode, because we're overloading the body. And it's like, oh my God, this is too much food. Our body cannot work like this. 3 meals, that's it, man. That's all we need. But make sure those 3 meals are nutrient dense. Make sure those 3 meals have protein. Make sure you're getting enough protein every single day. Because the thermic effect of that protein is going to allow us to burn more calories. And then incorporating recovery. So those days you're doing mobility or cycling at a low intensity or swimming or mobility, you're burning calories. It's not as intense as your metabolic workouts, but hey, what are we going to use as fuel? We're going to use fat. We're going to use fat as fuel, most likely. I'm not saying you're losing fat, but most likely we're going to use fat as fuel when we're doing these mobility, stretching, lower intensity. But what does this also do? This also ensures that we reduce the risk of injury, right? Because we want to improve our flexibility. We want to reduce the risk of injury. Those types of things will allow us to continue to work out, to continue to burn calories throughout the day when we can't get workouts in because we're injured. So now we're injured and we can't get workouts done. Now what do? That 600-700 calories that I would burn throughout the day is no more because I'm not working out because I'm injured. We don't want to be injured. That's why it's so important to do the yoga, to do the mobility, to warm up, to stretch. Specifically as we get older, man, game time's over, man. We have to focus on the not sexy things. It's not sexy. I think it's sexy. I'm now incorporating some, what I'm calling alpha flow yoga, but it's from Man Flow Yoga, our boy Dean, which I'm having on the podcast, which we're talking about doing something together. The yoga, because I'm finding, man, this yoga is difficult. For me, it's sexy because it's difficult, right? It's showing me all of my weaknesses, right? It's exposing balance issues, mobility issues, flexibility issues. And for me, that's exciting because that means I can build my balance. I can improve my balance, improve my flexibility, improve my balance, flexibility, improve my mobility, which means that only means two things. Probably more muscle because I'm more flexible, I'm more mobile, I've got the ability to increase my range of motion. Also means less injuries, less pain. So it's difficult to do yoga. It's humbling, especially man flow yoga. But anyways, aside from that, the foam rolling we talked about last week, just all of those little things add up to keeping us injury free and to help us burn calories. Small as it is, it's happening. And then of course, strategic timing and food consumption. So the balance plate meals are already there for you. You already know, it's crazy. You already know the foods you should eat and stay away from. It's right there for you. Like you don't even have to guess. I tell you, here's a list of the proteins, here's a list of the fats, here's a list of the carbs, here's the vegetables and fruits. Pick the ones you like and go for it. And the reason why we only eat 3 meals is because it helps stabilize our blood sugar levels and prevents those energy crashes, specifically when we have balance plate meals. Carbs, fats, proteins, vegetables, and fruits. That allows, and those foods are all nutrient dense, by the way. All those foods on that list are all nutrient dense. They play a role in our overall hormonal, our health, our muscle building, our fat loss, all of those things. They all play a role in our overall health. And then there's something called carbohydrate timing. So again, when we talked about me telling you guys that why it's so important to eat to eat a balanced plate meal, but why it's so important to have those carbs after the workout, right here, carb timing. Because there's 2 times you can consume a little bit higher amount of carbs on your plate, right? If you want to just be like, okay, you know what? The morning's perfect time. You can get some more carbs on your plate in the morning for sure, right? Whether it's through steel cut oats, whether it's, Ezekiel bread, I know that vegetables and fruits are carbs, but those are a little bit separate. But yes, berries, all of those things. It's a great time in the morning. Your body's primed for that because we just fasted. No, sorry, we didn't just fast. We just woke up from eating. So we haven't eaten in a long time. I don't like to say the word fast because then people automatically think about fasting, but yes, we're fasting obviously, but we're not fasting because we want to fast and not eat. We're fasting because we're just sleeping. That's the only reason why. We're just sleeping. But our body's in a perfect time to get those nutrients in and start the metabolism, kickstart everything, right? And then after a workout, that's the other time. In fact, when I used to train fighters, I told them after your training session, you're eating 3-to-1 carbs to protein, not even 2-to-1 carbs to protein. You're going to eat 3-to-1 carbs to protein because, and I'm not saying you guys, I'm just saying for guys who were training at such a high intensity, who had to keep their weight down because they were training for fights or just want to keep their weight. My fighters in who I used to train, I always had them in a state where they could fight anytime. Like if you want to fight tomorrow, we just have to do a weight cut, but you're never out of the zone of fighting. Like you don't because of most fighters, even UFC fighters, after their fight, they'll balloon up to, they'll gain a ton of weight and drink and party and do all kinds of shit. They're not always ready to fight. There are certain fighters who are always fight ready, who can take a fight on short notice. That's where I would tell them, okay, that's why you want to eat 3-to-1 carbs to protein because we want to replenish the glycogen stores, blah, blah, blah. So for us, the perfect time for us to eat more carbs throughout, like the most carbs and not feel like, is this too much, is after our workout. That's like the perfect time. Like load up. Your body's primed to take those carbs, the glycogen, replenish, protein goes to the muscles, the fat. See you later. Let's start getting rid of that, right? Let's start getting rid of that. Start using more fat for energy because we don't need it we don't need to store it anymore. We're getting what we need from the glycogen. So that's called nutrient timing. We don't have to go too deep into that, but for those of you who still think about like if you work out late, like I do that. I do a lot of times. I'll work out at 8 o'clock, sometimes 9 o'clock. Like I work out all different times of the day because I'm trying to shoot these videos. I'm still in shoot video mode. I'm not in, oh, this is my own workout schedule. I'm not there. I'm still shooting videos. So for me, I have to shoot videos at specific times. Like now my workouts are a little bit later because it's 1,000 degrees outside and I have a beautiful, patio up here where I shoot my workouts now because it's summertime. So I shoot them outside, but the ground, because the sun comes down, is extremely hot and it got black thing on the ground. So it's very, very hot. So I have to work out like at 5 or 6 when it's a little bit later. So, after that, it's about 7 or 8 or whatever the time is. I'm still eating the carbs after and probably more. So that's, don't be afraid there. Now that we're understanding, okay, our body will use that energy rather than store it. Because when we get the carbs in, your body's going to use it rather than store the fat, right? It's going to use all that energy and then, rather than let me hold on to the fat. And then increasing your water intake. This is huge. This is why I always say, now again, you'll hear fitness people who will say, it doesn't matter how much water you drink, just drink water. But I know that, again, if I don't tell you a specific number, most of you are not going to drink enough water. It's, I know this. So if I say 1 gallon of water, because that's perfect, it gives you okay, I got to drink 1 gallon of water. And in the morning, I'm going to drink cold water. And that cold water that I have in the morning, not during a workout, not throughout, if you like cold water, but generally speaking, you drink cold water in the morning because that's going to kickstart your metabolism, right? Cold water, because why is that going to do that? Well, cold water brings your body temperature down. That's right, because if you're drinking something that's cold, so now my body has to work to get it back to body temperature. My body has to work a little bit harder. It's got to burn calories, right, to get my body back to body temperature. So having cold water is great. Adding the electrolytes in the morning, perfect. So that's one of our routines. I'm hoping everyone does this routine. As soon as you wake up, 16 to 32 ounces of cold water with a scoop of electrolytes in the body to kickstart not only your metabolism, but to rehydrate yourself. Because when you're hydrated, it supports optimal metabolic function in the body. It supports digestion. It helps with your energy levels, right? You know what it's like when you are dehydrated. Your energy levels are completely gone, right? When you're dehydrated. So we want to hydrate all the time. Stay hydrated. Cold water specifically. Now, this is a caveat. You can make this an aha moment or not, but the reason why you don't drink cold water during your workouts is because we're doing metabolic training, which is going from one exercise to another with little rest in between. So we're already expending a lot of energy just to get through the exercises. But when you drink cold water, that puts your body in more of a stressful environment, which means it has to work harder during that work. So now you're putting your body so sometimes you may feel like, I just drank water, but I'm feeling a little bit more tired. And where I learned about this is when I was playing, I used to play beach volleyball, professional beach volleyball. And earlier in my career, I used to drink cold water and I would find that I would get tired faster during a match. And one of the doctors or whatever explained this whole process to me. Don't ever drink cold water. She said, do not drink cold water, because now with beach volleyball back in the 90s, you're playing 3 or 4 or 5 matches in a day in intense heat outside. So you got to learn how to preserve your energy, and cramping is a big thing that happens if you don't drink enough water, but sometimes if you drink too much, et cetera, et cetera. So I learned that. I only drink warm water when I'm working out, and then throughout the day, probably in the morning, maybe at night, or in the morning, maybe like during dinner, whatever, I'll drink colder water. But that's just a side note. Again, all these little things add up. When you know these little things, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. It starts to add up. Okay, quality sleep. This is the other thing. Extremely important, my God. Sleep and your metabolic health It's like it goes hand in hand. If you do not get 7 to 9 hours sleep, you're not going to lose fat. It's that simple. You're not going to lose fat. You're not going to lose that last bit of belly fat, because poor sleep disrupts these two hormones called ghrelin and leptin. I talked about these hormones before. These hormones regulate your hunger and satiety. This word I get this wrong all the time. So satiety, yes. Leading, and what this will do, it will lead to an increased caloric intake and a decrease in energy expenditure over time when you're not getting enough sleep. Poor quality, and again, I mean, there's a host of other things, but poor quality sleep also makes it difficult to maintain a healthy metabolism. Obviously, you can't build muscle if you don't get quality sleep, because in muscle recovery, muscle building, when your muscle gets bigger, it recovers. All of these things happen during sleep. It doesn't happen in the gym. So if you're not getting sleep, you're not going to build muscle. If you don't have muscle, you're not going to have that metabolism. It also keeps your energy levels down when you don't have sleep, right? So when you don't have energy throughout the day, you can't burn calories because you don't have energy to do anything. And aside from your hormones, testosterone, hormonal balance, chronic health issues, Alzheimer's, freaking high blood pressure, diabetes. I mean, the list goes on. The list goes on. Sleep is key. So there's a lot of things we talked about here that will set up, that optimize calorie deficit throughout the day. We talked about your workouts, metabolic workouts. We talked about building muscle mass, making sure that you're always focusing on building muscle. We talked about the NEAT activities throughout the day, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, NEAT, right? Walking, the movements, the things you do with your kids or grandkids, walking after dinner, the 10,000 steps, all of those things. The fidgeting I'm not going to count, but anyway. Number 4 is the thermic effect of food. So making sure you're eating enough protein, right? Protein, 1 gram per body part, per 1 gram per pound, 1 gram of protein per the weight that you are. And if you're like obese, then you want to eat the amount of weight that you want to get to. So let's say you're 300 pounds. Well, let's get 240 grams in, right? You want to, number 5, incorporating that active recovery, right? The mobility, the yoga, walking, swimming. Swimming's fantastic. Even my low intensity cardio / active recovery is going on the Peloton for 30 minutes and riding at low intensity. That will be one of my things I do. I'll have mobility, then I'll get on the bike, stretching, of course. That's number 5. Number 6 is strategic meal timing, right? Balanced plate meals. So meal timing and the consumption of your plates, balanced plates. That's why we have balanced plate meals. That's why we don't snack, because snacking is going to set you up for more calories that you don't actually need, because you're not eating the nutrient-dense foods you need to eat. Number 7, water, 1 gallon a day. Drink. Yes, you're going to be pee guy and gal, but that doesn't matter. That's what we do. Getting 7 to 9 hours sleep, putting a ton of stock into your sleep, making that really the thing that you focus on. We are having a sleep challenge in October, so be ready for it. 6-week sleep challenge. It's coming up in October. All right, let's continue down this journey. I'm going to quickly go through this, because the foundation of fat loss is definitely your nutrition. That's the foundation. Okay, this is where it comes to. The foundation is going to be nutrition. Okay, when it comes to fat loss, yes, exercise is important, but you can't outtrain a bad diet. I've talked about this many times. Doesn't matter how many workouts you do, if your nutrition isn't on point, you're not going to burn fat. You're not going to build muscle. Sorry, you're not going to lose fat. You're not going to build muscle. And your overall health is going to be completely compromised. So what do? It's a balanced plate meal, right? Balanced plate diet. Balanced plate meals includes proteins, fats, and complex carbs, right? Because remember, a calorie from sugar is not the same as a calorie from basmati rice or sweet potato, right? Like, but they're both carbs, right? The calorie that comes from like a donut, sorry, a donut is different from the calories that come from a piece of Ezekiel bread or a sweet potato. Like if they were the same actual calorie count, what this is doing to your body and your hormones, the sugar, the type of nutrients that are coming in is completely different from this calorie. So it's not calories in, calories out. It's the type of calories in, the nutrient dense calories. Because remember, your body has to remember calories are our currency for our body. It's the energy currency. So we're not using monopoly money, right? Like processed foods, trans fats, soy, sugar, all of that. That's not monopoly money. That's monopoly energy. That I can't do anything. My body doesn't know what to do with that money. Like, yeah, I got $100 monopoly money is not the same as $100 real money. Good nutrients? No, it's not the same. Too different. The body reacts differently to the type of calories you put in. At our age, can a 15-year-old eat donuts? Is a 15-year-old donut to sweet potato different? Probably. Their body's a lot different. It's not going through the hormonal, physiological change our bodies are going through. So it's not the same. I'm talking about us. Okay? And so proteins, fats, vegetables, fruits, complex carbs. Each of these macronutrients are going to play a unique role for our body. It's going to ensure that we get the right balance that's crucial for both energy management and our metabolic health. Remember, the metabolic health has a big role here. We had freaking Dr. Jockers on the podcast talking just about metabolic health, not the last one, but the one before. How important that is. And that comes from, a lot of that comes from our nutrition. So proteins, again, building blocks of our muscles, our bones. But again, it has a high thermic effect of food. So we want to make sure that we're getting enough protein, because muscle is a key driver of our metabolic rate. Again, the more muscle we have, the more energy and calories we're going to burn just being more muscular. Our metabolic rate's going to be higher. So we need to ensure that we are consuming the right amount of protein to help with maintaining muscle mass, because the protein also helps with fat loss as well, right? Protein also helps us feel full. Protein also helps to stabilize our insulin levels, because if we're not eating protein, when we eat protein, that balances our insulin levels, which is why we can eat these complex carbs while our insulin levels shooting through the roof, because we're eating protein with it. I talked about that in the diabetes podcast and coaching call. And of course, carbs, I know they often get a bad rap, but think about carbs as the source of support for our thyroid. Because our thyroid, the function of our thyroid directly impacts our metabolism. Our thyroid gland produces the hormones that regulate our metabolic rate. And if we don't get enough carbs, complex carbs, it will slow down our thyroid function. Right? And it's complex carbs, not simple carbs. Because people may have simple carbs, but they find that they are gaining a lot of weight. Their metabolism is down and they have thyroid issues because they're not eating the right types of carbs. So if our metabolic rate is low, it's going to be very difficult to lose fat, because we're not going to be burning calories like we would if our metabolic rate was optimal. And then, of course, dietary fats are essential for hormone production, testosterone, muscle maintenance, and fat metabolism. Because healthy fats like avocados, I'm going to talk about avocados in another podcast I'm coming up with, the importance of avocados, how we should be eating one avocado a day or half an avocado a day, nuts, olive oils, all these things help with nutrient absorption, right? So it gives us a longer lasting source of energy when we absorb nutrients the way our body needs to. Because when we eat calories that are, I don't want to say empty calories, but when we don't eat nutrient dense calories, you know what happens when we don't eat nutrient dense calories like processed foods and sugars and all that stuff? Our body doesn't think we got calories in. So then you become hungrier and hungrier. That's why you can't just have one Lay's chip. You got to eat the whole bag, because you have one Lay's chip. Your body doesn't, your body in here doesn't know that Lay's chip doesn't have the nutrients that it needs to keep things going and to have the calories that it needs. The body just knows that your mouth's about to open and something's coming in. But if it's Lay's chips, then okay, well, hey man, we need more, because we don't have what we need. We need more. And next thing you know, the bag's gone, and all the host of other things that happen. And of course, our vegetables and fruits, the fiber, the vitamins, the minerals, the micronutrients that are going to help, help with our blood sugar levels, help promote digestive health, help with our overall health, help with our hormones. That's why we eat a balanced plate meal. Protein, fats, carbs. It's very simple. And again, we talk about protein. We talked about 1 to 2 grams per 1.2 to 2 grams per kilogram if you're a kilo person, or 1 gram per pound if you're a pound person. It's very simple. But sometimes you're going to need to go through and actually do a calorie audit, right? Because although we don't count calories in this program, we did a calorie audit at the beginning of the year where we went through a whole week and tracked our calories, so we knew that, okay, because what happens is when you know generally the amount of calories that your plates usually get by tracking it for a week, then you can just know okay, this is generally, because I've done this before, this is about 500 calories. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of get a picture of the amount of calories you're getting in, because sometimes we think we're getting enough calories in, but we're not. So doing a calorie audit, yes, it is very time consuming. Yes, it's very tedious, but when you do a calorie audit, you also know, oh, okay, that's where now I understand that, this is what I need. Now I understand that, oh, I'm only getting this much calories through food. I need more. I need like 3,000 calories. I'm only getting 2,000 calories. Oh, I thought I was eating more. I thought I was eating enough. Okay, let's add some more to get that right up. But you can only do that really and truly by doing like a week of an audit. But you shouldn't be counting calories every day. It's just getting that week audit. This would be a good time, actually. Actually, no, this would not be a good time, because this is the summer. It's the summertime. There's a lot of things happening, and, probably September, mid-September would be a good time. Maybe we should do one in October. It's always good to do it maybe once or twice a year to get a good calorie audit, just to see where we're at. And again, making sure that every meal has protein, etc. Now, how do you get extra protein in? Like, you can get extra protein in with a protein shake after your workout, which is what I do. Just water and protein. That's it. Not milk, water and protein. Not a smoothie, just water and protein. And then we also do it at nighttime before we go to bed. So I have my sleep shred, I have my magnesium, I have my gummies, my ACV gummies, and then I drink freaking this much with a scoop and a half of protein. That's what I do. I have, because I don't like watery, like the Alpha Lean Pro tastes absolutely amazing, but when you put a ton of water in it, obviously it's going to taste crappy. But if you just have a little bit of water, because I have a sweet tooth, so a little bit of water, which is half of this. This is how much water I put in, and I'll put in a massive heaping scoop, sometimes a little bit extra depending on how I feel, shake it up and down it, and then have a drink of water after to make sure it goes down, and I'm good. I'm going to sleep, right? Like, and again, that there's no time. It's not like, do you do it 15 minutes before? Do you do it 10 minutes before? One day I may do it 15, one may do it 10, maybe I'll do it 30 minutes. Like, it's just when I remember. That's all. There's no like, when's the best time? Because the whey protein is a fast digesting protein, so it's gonna get through your body very quickly. It's not like casein protein, which is a slow digesting protein, right? That digests much slower. But we don't need to get into that. We're not bodybuilders. We're not there. We don't need to spend money on a protein that we don't need. specifically if you're not getting enough protein. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so practical tips. What are the practical tips? Number one, this is the most practical tip. I want you all to write this down. This is the biggest tip. And this is consistency. I'm sorry, guys. It's consistency. That's the biggest tip. You have to be consistent. This isn't a game of, I was on for a month and then I dropped off. I was on for 2 months and then I dropped off. Because remember, the more you drop off, which is moving away from your overall health, the faster you are driving to your overall deathbed. Whether it's a stroke, whether it's Alzheimer's, whether it's high blood pressure, whether it's a heart attack, whether it's cancer, we're not guessing here. It's all out. It's there. Like we're not playing games. It's not a scare tactic. It's life. You either accept that or you don't. And if you don't accept it, then there's not much we can do. You have to accept that if you're not putting your health number one, you're just, I don't even know what you're doing here. I don't even know why you're here. Really, truly. Consistency, which is why we did the 31 for 31, because all of you people showed consistency. Because guess what? Life happens. So we have to stay consistent on life's terms, not on our terms. When we try to do things on our terms, that's when we get inconsistent. But life happens. Things happen. When I started my summer course at Harvard, which is a more intense course, did I know my dad was going to almost drop dead from diabetes and now blind in one eye and I'd have to take care of him from the time I started school? No. But I had to stay in school, had to do things for my dad, drive out and help him out and take him here and there and everywhere and get his diabetes on point. Had to get my workouts in, had to do the 31 for 31. That's life. But what doesn't change is our focus on our health, because I would not have been able to show up for my father if I was not healthy. I didn't have energy. I would not be able to go to school 6, 7, 9 hours a week, out, and then have this, what I do here with you guys and everything else. That would never happen if I wasn't healthy enough, because then I would get more unhealthy. We can't show up for the people we need to show. We're at an age now where we have to show up for our parents if we have parents. We're at that age. So consistency, guys, just consistency. Daily activity. What is our daily activity, right? We got to incorporate more movement into our routine. Shorter going for walks after dinner. Make sure you go for a 30-minute walk after dinner. Helps with digestion. It is a perfect time to actually lose fat, to help you with a caloric deficit after you eat at dinner time, getting the 10,000 steps in. Maybe that's what we need to get. The only thing about the 10,000 steps that and I think it's very good. And I do think it's good, but the only thing sometimes is it a sustainable thing for you to be tracking your steps every day? You have to ask yourself that question, because the only way you're going to know if you get 10,000 steps is by tracking your steps. Right. And so what happens if you don't get 10,000 steps? Are you going to beat yourself up? Are you going to put yourself in more stress? Right. What if you are close to your steps and it's late at night? Are you going to leave your house and go for a walk to get the 10,000 steps? You have to be a type of person who can understand that. So I like the 10,000 steps. I like it because it is an amazing way to get the caloric deficit in place, even during workout. Like 10,000 steps isn't instead of working out. Okay, so don't ask me the question if I do 10,000 steps a day, it doesn't mean I don't have to work out. No, this is NEAT. Remember is this NEAT? Yeah, this is the non-exercise stuff. Walking is just walking. It's not working out. It's walking. And we can do that every single day because it's low and it's not a thing that's going to push our cortisol levels up, right? It's just steady walking. We're in a caloric deficit, which is what we're trying to get that caloric deficit. We're trying to burn more calories. Also, walking after you eat helps with digestion. but it does give you a sense of understanding how much movement you need to do in a day to get to 10,000 steps. So maybe a 1 month 10,000 step thing. Like I know Angela, she is literally obsessed with getting 10,000 steps. Like whether it's she comes home from a hike or not a hike, she's usually home from work or whatever. She's worked out. She may only have 7,000. She's going for a walk. Whether I'm coming with her or not is whatever, but she goes for a walk. She'll walk around the house to get those 10,000 steps. Like it's not even, I said something before to her, and this is where I realized how important the 10,000 steps were. I said this to her like 2 weeks ago. I said to her, hey man, we know that 10,000, it's not really like, it doesn't matter if it's 10,000 or 5,000. And that really upset her, because for her, the 10,000 steps, along with everything else, was very important to her. And me saying that to her felt like I was diminishing or, the work she's trying to do. And I realized that. I'm like, oh shit, okay, yeah, okay. It's not just the 10,000 steps. It's like the commitment to the 10,000 steps and how I need to support that commitment, as opposed to being, do we really need 10,000 steps? Right? And that's learning process for me. I'm understanding. And then I even understand, okay, maybe, you know what? Maybe I need to get goddamn 10,000 steps. Maybe I should just do it too. Because who am I to say 5,000, 10,000, right? Like, let's go. So, so again, the nutrition's key. Here's the thing. When it boils down to it, when it comes to us, it's going to really come from, because if you're in a phase right now, so you're in a phase and you're doing your 3 workouts or 4 workouts, it's right. And you're eating 3 meals a day and you're still, not getting the fat loss is still difficult. So there's a few things. Number one, you got to understand how many calories you actually need per day, right? Because if you're too low, you could be sabotaging your metabolism and the ability to build muscle. So going to that TDEE calculator is really good, because that's going to allow you to understand, am I actually getting it? What do I need? And again, that's not set in gold. That's just an indication, right? Number two, so that's number one, knowing that. Number two is making sure that, okay, let me get these calories in, right? Through my nutrition. Am I eating sustainably all the time? And again, if you're trying to lose fat, guilt-free meals aren't part of the process here. Okay. If that's your goal and you're just kind of like in the last, like I got a little bit left, the guilt-free meals, that'll happen afterwards. Get to your goal first, because you're trying to get somewhere and then you're just adding more barriers in place. No guilt-free meals until you get to where your goal is, till you get that sustainability. That's number two. So the nutrition, the calories, the amount of calories. Number three is, are you getting 10,000 steps? Let's just say 10,000 steps. Are we getting 10,000 steps a day? Right? Maybe we need to start tracking, and that could be an additional thing that sometimes it's just that little thing that, oh man, as soon as I started walking more, oh my God, it started to fall off. That's number three. Number four is 7 to 9 hours sleep. The sleep is so important, man. I cannot say how important this is for fat loss, like literal fat loss. But it's really water retention loss, but still, it's that thing that if everything else is in place and that's not, then you're not going to lose fat. We need the sleep. And just making sure that on those off days, you are doing some recovery, mobility, NEAT, right? Maybe adding a low intensity bike ride or something on those days, but making sure the mobility is in place, the flexibility. Like don't do the swim and all that stuff in place of the mobility. Because why are we doing the mobility, the flexibility, the yoga, the range of motion? So that we don't get injured, right? That's the key. Those would be the key things. And then building muscle, like just making sure that in those workouts, we're still not using 20 pounds in phase 12, where we've increased the weight at some point and continue to increase the weight. Of course, each phase brings, different workouts and different styles, but hey man, if we're still using the same weight that we used in phase 1, you're not going to do anything. You're not doing anything. So we're almost done here. I'm going to talk about targeting belly fat and how to target belly fat. And then I'm also going to talk about how to monitor your progress. And then we're going to wrap it all up. So how do we target belly fat? We can't, okay? So we can't target belly fat. I'm just going to put that to rest. You can't, okay? There's no such thing as spot reduction. What we can do is build muscle and build strength around the core and our abs, which is why I have those workouts in there. But there's none of this, okay? There's none of this. So it's very, very, very important to make sure that we have the calorie deficit, the metabolic workouts, the muscle building, the ab and core, because that's going to help us build the ab and core strength that we need. And the more muscle we have in our abs, the more metabolic we're going to be. But we can't what are the exercises that we need to do? And then, of course, the hormonal consideration. I haven't really even talked about how testosterone comes into play, because the more testosterone you have, the less body fat you're going to have. The more testosterone you have, the less body fat you're going to have. The potential, right? That's why it's 15% lower for testosterone production. Remember, that's why in our alpha zone, I tell you 15% or lower. That's because that's the optimal body fat percentage for testosterone production to happen. So the more testosterone you have, the less body fat you're going to have. Right? So that's why we want to keep that testosterone level up. We want to do the things to get our T levels up, even right off the bat, even to start things off. Right? That's why I have the Alpha Max Test 3D, because it's going to give you an edge without doing the other stuff, the TRT stuff. But anyway, those are the things in order for your belly fat. So how do we monitor? Okay, so here, this is a big one here, because we got to monitor this, right? We monitor it. We can't use a scale to monitor how much body fat. Okay, we can't do that, because the scale doesn't indicate fat loss. It just indicates weight. And most of that weight loss usually comes from muscle. And muscle's denser than fat. So I gotta order that muscle. This is 1 pound of fat, and this is 5 pounds of fat. Okay, this is really what it is in our body. If you've got 5 pounds of extra fat, this is what it is distributed amongst your body. This is 1 pound. But if I held up 1 pound of muscle, right? Or sorry, if I held up this amount of muscle, right? Because 1 pound is 1 pound. But if I held up this amount of muscle, in my hand, it would be heavier. It's more dense. It would be heavier. The amount, not the weight. Because yes, 1 pound of muscle is 1 pound of muscle. It's probably be smaller than this. It would be smaller than this. So the scale is not the tool we use. Because what happens often is we look down here and we look at the number, but we're not seeing what's happening here. We're seeing that, I'm down 5 pounds. And then we look up and it's like, why do I got this belly fat here? I lost weight. Or we look down and goes, oh my God, I'm up 10 pounds. What happened? Because we're not looking at the muscle that we're building. The muscle that we're building, the fat that we're losing from the 10 pounds. Well, that's it's a little bit extreme, because it's hard to build 10 pounds of muscle, but you know what I mean. I always talk about the body composition. I always talk about my boy across the street, who, by the way, is looking much better. My boy's looking much better. He just had twins, and he's looking better. He's taking more stock into his health. So I love the fact that he's doing it. But the body, again, we same height, same weight. We're similar, probably less now, but you look at me, you look at him, two totally different people. Big belly, soft versus more muscular. So body measurements are a good way to track, right? Your hips, your waist, your chest, your limbs. See if you're losing inches. Progress pictures. I always talk about taking those pictures, man. It's a visual document of the changes in your body composition. Your strength gains are going to give you some indication, right? And then just patience. Really and truly, it's patience. Right? Using these scales now, I'm going to caveat this with one thing. Because remember, we're trying to gauge the calorie deficit, right? Because where are we going to really see the fat loss, really and truly? Well, when we do our body fat percentage, but you do need, like, to get a very accurate read of your body fat percentage, like calipers are okay. It's a start. It gives us you know what I mean? But most of the time, it's actually a lot of the time, again, it depends on the calipers. It's going to be off a couple of percentages, 2 or 3, either up or down. Sometimes, most of the times, it's not 100%, right? So just using that specifically isn't going to be ideal. That's why taking pictures are important, because there are specific visual. You can look at somebody and know on the whole how much body fat percentage they have, like where they sit in that realm of, like, oh, do they have 7% to 10%? Do they have 11 to 12? Like, there's a body fat, there's a body composition, but there are also like scales out there that will give you readings of like your your muscle mass and your body fat percentage. Like, when I step on my scale, it tells me my body fat percentage is like 25%. My body fat is not 25%. Like, I don't need that scale. I'm not running. And most of you actually who are doing that are probably in the same position. You're probably stepping on something that's telling you have way more body fat than you actually do. I don't put stock into those things, like the scale that you know what I mean, like that you're standing on, because it's almost impossible for a scale like that to tell you how much body fat you have. Is it really reading body fat? Is it reading muscle? Is it reading the amount of water you're retaining? So I don't use those as my gauge. Now, that being said, I am looking into something, because at the gym I go to, there's a body fat, there's a thing that I use, InBody. It's called InBody, and I put my hand on the InBody. That's pretty accurate. It's not 100% accurate, but that's pretty accurate. That's going to be kind of like the next best thing for just regular people who don't like do the water submerging, or, you know, like the most accurate thing. Most of us don't have access to that. So having an in scale, one of those in things where you stand on the scale, you put your hands on, and, you know, that's pretty accurate. That's what I use when I go there, and that gets me into 10%, 11%. But even that can be a little bit skewed, right? Sometimes. But I am looking into this new thing that came out from Hume, which is like a body scan, where you hold your hand, you hold on to the thing, and it scans your body. It's literally brand new. And I'm looking into, because I've done things with Hume in the past, so bear with me, because one of the things that we do need to track is our body fat percentage. Like, we want to know how it is, right? What's our body fat percentage? What's our body fat mass index? All the BMI, all these things, which is not the most important thing, but in the end, I'm looking into this. So give me some time. They've reached out to me. I did do stuff with them in the past. Like, one of my, some of you guys probably have the same one. The scale is the Hume scale, I think it is. They have an app. Anyways, I'm not going to take up more time in this. When I get it, and I'm going to test it, you know me, I test everything for you guys. And if I feel like it's the next best, closest thing for us to use, for you to use, then I will promote it as much as I possibly can, because I know sometimes it's difficult to do the calipers. You definitely do not want to use a scale that brings those numbers up. They're totally off. Like, it's not even a question. I even did a video showing you how just the scale itself can be off. One scale tells me I'm 190 pounds. Another scale tells me I'm 194, and they're in the exact same place. So, you know what I mean? Like, yes, it gives us indication, but photos, body measurements, clothes, strength gains, and just patience and persistence. But how do we track, like, our caloric burn? Because remember, this whole thing started with fat loss versus fat burning and being in a caloric deficit. Well, we know, if we look at our TDEE, what our general caloric intake needs to be on a daily basis, but using trackers like Whoop, the Whoop strap. Now, I used to use the Whoop strap to try to track my sleep and HRV, but that was all off. But the one thing it tracked very well was my calories. It tracked my calories pretty well. And one of the things that it indicated to me a lot of the times, and this is where I tell you guys how important sleep is when I woke up, I would already have burned 600 calories just waking up. If I looked at my caloric burn for the day, just waking up, it'd be like 600 or 500. If I didn't get good sleep, it'd be lower. If I got good sleep, it would be more. So just starting the day. The Whoop strap is good. The Fitbit is good. Apple Watch is good. So any type of tracker, Garmin, Apple Watch, Fitbit, Whoop, those are some. Now, the reason why, so the wearables are probably your best because the wearables are going to give you an indication. Remember, we just need an indication. We can't do this blind, right? We can't do it blind. And you got to use your common sense. Like, it's not, is it going to be 100%? No. But if it can tell you that, okay, it's saying that I'm burning, 3,500 calories a day and my intake is 2,500 calories, we're good. Or whatever it is, just like, let's say my daily was 3,000 and my Whoop says I burned 3,500, we're good. Or 3,100, we're good. Or 3,200, we're good. It's not about how much your calories are. It's just being in a deficit. You just want to stay in that deficit on a consistent basis, right? This is the key here. The deficit on a consistent basis, which is why I threw in the no guilt-free meals, because it's going to be very difficult to beat a caloric deficit with a guilt-free meal. Very difficult. So some type of a tracker. Now, you can do smartphone trackers, but the only problem with a smartphone tracker like MyFitnessPal or whatever, you have to have the phone on you the whole time. And I don't have my phone on me. I barely have my phone. Barely. Like if I go on walks, there's no phone. If I go to sleep, my phone's downstairs. It's not even in the room. Like I don't have my phone on me. The only time my phone's on me is right here. That's it. I don't like my phone. I don't use my phone, to shoot videos and stuff. But you know what I mean? My phone's not there. And just one final thing. If I was to give you like the optimal fat loss day, like the optimal day, what would the optimal day look like? Right? Because sometimes you may think, okay, well, yeah, you give me a lot of information and I want to try to this is a lot. So I tried to kind of give you what would be like an optimal day, right? Again, it's going to change, but you wake up in the morning, maybe you go to bed at 8. No, let's go. You wake up at 6, you don't go to bed at 8. You wake up at 6 a.m. Okay. And you start your day off with 16 to 32 ounces of water, cold water mixed with electrolytes. You down that water, you get that water in, right? You're downing, you're getting it in right away. You're not sipping, you're not doing other things. You're getting it in right away to start that process, to kickstart your metabolism, to start to support your overall energy and hydration, rehydrating yourself from sleeping. So and then you supplement, right? So, again, this is my optimal day. For me, it's Alpha Shred. I always start my morning with one pill, Alpha Shred, every morning. So I'll have that, boom, and that's what I start my morning with. That kickstarts my whole fat burning day, in quotes. Then 6:30. So again, this is just regular people thing, okay? Because it's a little bit different. But at about 6:30, you're going to start doing your morning stress reducing routine, right? You're going to meditate or deep breathing. You're going to do your gratitude journal. Maybe do a little bit of stretching, mobility, just to get the blood flow going. That's going to happen right in the morning. Then your breakfast, your balanced plate meal, right? That's going to be your very first thing with greens, with all your supplements like your probiotics, your Alpha Daily, your vitamin D3, K2, your omega-3s, all of those vitamins and minerals you're going to have at breakfast. And then you start your workday off, right? So whatever that workday is. If you sit all day like I do, then you're getting up all the time. You're getting up, you're moving around. Like I sit all day long here. So I have to take breaks, moving around, getting up, doing as much as you can throughout the workday to move around. Then lunchtime comes, you have a balanced plate meal. Then in the afternoon, you do your workout, right? So that workout would be metabolic workout, your abs. Your post-workout would be protein, maybe amino acids if you want. And then after that workout, depending if it's an hour or 2 hours after, an hour after, half hour after, you have your meal, your balanced plate meal with more complex carbs in it. After that meal, you're going on a walk, right? You're going on that 20 to 30 minute walk. And you may also walk after lunch, right? After lunch, you go on a walk, but you're walking after dinner, right? And then your evening will wind down with maybe some foam rolling, maybe some more mobility. You're starting to create that sleep environment, right? That's probably about 8 o'clock. You're starting to wind 8:30. You're winding down. You're relaxing. You're sleeping. Maybe you're going to take your sleep shred, your magnesium, and then you get ready for bed. And you're in bed at 10 o'clock, 10 till 8, 10 till 6, 10 till 6, 10 till 6, and so within that day, through the walking, through your nutrition, through your workouts, through the water, the hydration. And that is a great way to implement all of the things that are going to keep you in a caloric deficit, because you're always moving. You're always moving. With that being said, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day, great morning, great afternoon, great night.